Hey guys, Lanesh Devotee here again. I decided to put out what I'm calling an audio blog, basically just me thinking out loud for a bit. I don't know if you'll find it at all interesting, but this is what it is. I'll try and put some pretty pictures up to occupy you while you listen to me blather on, if you continue. So I thought I'd start with, I play Conquest, obviously. I've put up a whole bunch of Conquest videos, and it's the first time I've played any sort of collectible card game type thing, living card, whatever you want to call these things. I've played lots of board games in my day. I used to play a lot of card games like Go Fish and Gin and Poker and those sorts of card games with my family, and I really loved all that. And then as I grew up, I got involved with 40k and Warhammer Fantasy and playing with the models with my friends. But eventually you get a bit tired with the way Games Workshop runs things, and they just don't really seem to use what they have the best. And so I got a bit tired of playing those games, and also it takes so long to play a game, to have a battle with your friends. But then I saw Fantasy Flight Games had put out this card game called Conquest, and I thought, oh yeah, a card game version of the battles, that could be interesting, and I looked it up. And I thought that I watched the intro videos and things, and I thought, yeah, this could be good. And I bought the core set. And I tried to get all my mates who played 40k to play it, and they were happy enough to. They were interested in the cards and things to represent their armies, but none of them went out and bought anything. You know, if I make them a deck, they'll play me. But I loved being able to play in this universe that I thought was so cool, with all the crazy, over-the-top, fascist, evil Imperium that's actually the good guys, and the Space Marines, and the ridiculous orcs being so ludicrous, and all that stuff. So I really enjoyed it. I got into Conquest, and I started looking on the forums and talking to people on the forums. I eventually downloaded Octagon so I could actually play it more often online, and then I managed to find some playgroups in my city that actually would play it. I managed to get, like, the best, I think I had 5 people in a store playing Conquest at once. So that tells you how many people are playing Conquest in Auckland. But it was on the rise. People were interested, and I think if it hadn't been canned, it could have been quite a popular game, and I could have had a few regular people to play. It would have been quite nice. But it did get canned. And at that point I thought, this card game thing is quite neat. I've never played any others. I don't know how any others work. I've heard a whole lot of people talking about Doomtown and Ashes, and I've seen some people playing Netrunner, and of course there's Magic the Gathering. I don't know how any of those games work. I don't know anything about any of them. And that's kind of my point of this block, is I'm coming at Legend of the Five Rings completely with no expectations of anything. Anyway, so Conquest died, and I looked around and wondered, maybe I should play Game of Thrones. Maybe I should give that a try. I really love the Game of Thrones universe. I really like the way it's set up to sort of represent these political maneuverings, all these different challenges that you have, and the people and places that you can put into play. I really liked it. But even though I know I can see people playing it around me in Auckland, I know it's online, I know all these things, I just never quite could be bothered to get in. Maybe one day I'll just buy just the packs that would give me a really basic themed deck that doesn't really work very well, because that tends to be the sort of thing I like to play. But that was Game of Thrones. It didn't really pull me in. And then you have Legend of the Five Rings, which is huge. People everywhere going nuts over it. But they're all going nuts because they know all these characters in this story, and they're all talking about how this story will work, or how these mechanics are fantastic, and I don't know any of this story. I don't know any of this background. I don't know what makes that mechanic better than this mechanic. So, I'm not sure. I know that it's really popular amongst a lot of the people at the store I go to in Auckland, but they're all playing the old version, and who knows if they'll want to play the new one. And from the outside looking in, as a completely fresh person who doesn't do these things but might be tempted to play it, I don't know. It just doesn't... The game itself seems mechanically interesting. It looks like an interesting game that I might play. But this background stuff really doesn't bother me. And there's all these people on forums and things talking about clan loyalties and things. I'm like, yeah, there were people in Conquest who just wanted to play Eldar, or got known for playing orcs. I'm sure they're the same in Game of Thrones. And I'm not sure why people get so invested in this Legend of the Five Rings clans. I mean, clearly they do. I don't see what makes that any different to any other group you can play in any other card game. Is it the story interaction thing that they talked about? It seems a really easy thing to continue. Just, look at the numbers of players doing how well in tournaments, and you can come up with some changes to the story. But then again, this is the other thing, it's like, I don't know why I should care about the story. I already knew the story for Conquest, and that's why I played it. I already know the story for Game of Thrones, and that's the only reason I was tempted by it. And all these other things, I'm like, story, it's a really abstracted card game. I don't know. If I do get into Legend of the Five Rings, obviously I'll try and play it in my local store. It'll mean it's a game where I'll actually find opponents, hopefully. But I'll also be hoping that it'll turn up on Octagon, and I'll record videos and put those out, hopefully. But at least the mechanics will be familiar enough. I mean, at a certain point, having to choose between 1 and 5 on a secret dial across from my opponent, who's also choosing between 1 and 5 on a secret dial, and that will determine something to do with the amount of income in a certain sense that we receive. I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar, at least from having watched, being able to choose different types of challenge in different orders and making decisions about who is going to be affected by those challenges with different strengths for my particular deck. I'll be familiar with having 5 different outcomes of conflicts that could happen, and each of those 5 outcomes could have an effect upon me or my opponent, depending on what I'm hoping for strategically at that point in the game. And again, just through watching, I'm familiar with having secret hidden objectives face down on the board in front of me, and then people being able to choose and direct an attack and having to flip it up and see what sort of a consequence occurs when they hit it. I'm also a little bit concerned, not a lot, just a little bit, that it looks like it's a bunch of white guys making an Asian game, or an Asian-inspired game, and there's some potential to be quite cringy there. I'm hoping they do a bit of due diligence to make sure that they minimise that. But yeah, so Legend of the Five Rings, it looks interesting. I'm going to keep reading the intro articles and look at it. Seems could be quite good. I could be quite into it. So, from the perspective of a completely newbie, fresh, outside the sort of card gaming community thing, it seems interesting, it seems alright, but it really doesn't seem amazing. I'll really wait and see what happens. So if you think I'm saying ridiculous things, or you have another point of view that you think I need to take into consideration, please leave some comments below and I'll try and chat with you, and you may get some more videos about L5R from me in the future. See ya!